Hey, I'm Paul Rabley, and in this video, we're going to talk about the third of 5 ways that married people leave their estate. So I'm Paul Rabley. I'm an estate planning attorney. I help our clients get and keep their legal affairs in order. This is really an important topic, this married couple situation, how things are left when the first spouse dies for perhaps the surviving spouse and the children. It's an important topic because when that married person dies, obviously they're not here anymore. They're not here to referee or anything like that. And so how they leave things really affects the relationships of the survivors, the surviving spouse, and perhaps the children. It affects the financial well-being of parties that are involved. It can have an impact for the next generation or two. So we really need to take a close look at how a married person arranges things, arranges their estate when they die. 5 scenarios. This is number 3. The first one, other videos. First one, real simple. I just leave it all to my spouse. And we talked about the pros and cons there. We talked about the tax consequences. So you can go check that out. Number 2 was I leave my things in a trust for my spouse. My spouse can get the income off of that trust. My spouse can use the principal of that trust for my spouse's health, education, maintenance, and support after I die. And then when my spouse dies, the remaining trust principal reverts back to my children, my heirs. And oh, by the way, I designate my spouse as the trustee to make all of those determinations as to what my spouse's needs might be and when and how much of the trust principal she can use. So that was number 2. We talked about the tax consequences and pros and cons of that. This is number 3 of 5, and this one's a little bit different. First 2 really common, and this one, not that it's uncommon and not that it's wrong. Just because something's not common doesn't mean it's not right. So they all have their place. So this is a scenario where a married person dies, and either through his will or through his revocable living trust, he says, and I usually just refer to he as he died first, because 30 years of conversations, talking to husband and wives, most husbands think they're going to die first. Maybe it's the men don't live as long thing. Maybe the husband's older. Maybe it's health issues. So I'm just going to use an example where he dies first, leaves his surviving wife, but it would work the same way if she died first and left her surviving husband. So he dies, and this third scenario goes something like this. Well, I want to provide for my spouse, and I want to make sure my spouse is taken care of after I die, but I'm a little bit concerned about either what my spouse might do with the assets or how my spouse might be influenced by her children or maybe even by my children. And so I want to provide for my spouse, but I don't want to give my spouse that, really control where things could go wrong. So what I'm going to do in this scenario is when I die, I want my stuff to go in a trust. Yes, that will provide for my spouse. She can get the income. The principal can be used for her health, education, maintenance, and support. And then when my spouse dies, the trustee will distribute all of the assets to the beneficiaries that I named, not the beneficiaries that she names. She can leave her own stuff however she wants. And I don't want my spouse to be the trustee of that trust after I die. I don't want my spouse being the one to be able to determine how much principal gets taken out of this trust for her support and her maintenance. I want either my spouse to be a co-trustee with somebody else, or I want somebody else to be the sole trustee of that trust. So in this third of 5 arrangements, leaving things to a trust for your spouse, providing for who gets it when your spouse dies, but your spouse is not the sole trustee of that trust. See, that's a big deal. That's why this had to have its own little category. It wasn't just enough to say, I'm going to, one method is leaving things to a trust that revert back to your heirs when your spouse dies. But I felt like we needed to break it down into 2 different methods. One, that scenario where the spouse is the sole trustee, and the second, this one where the spouse is not the sole trustee. So under this scenario, maybe the husband says, when I die, I want my estate, my part of the trust, whatever, to be for my wife. She can get the income. But it will take co-trustees, and she can be one of the 2 co-trustees, but I'm going to appoint my responsible child or some other third party that I feel like could work with my wife and could maybe prevent my wife from draining the trust, either because of what she might do or what she might be influenced to do by her children or some other third party. So I'm going to leave things to a trust. My wife is not going to be the sole trustee. Maybe she's a co-trustee with somebody else. Maybe she's not even a trustee at all. Maybe there's a corporate trustee for those higher end trusts. But it's when you do that and you don't name the spouse as the sole trustee, you're really keeping that surviving spouse from having that kind of complete say-so over the management and the distributions from the trust. So there's a little bit more, maybe a lot more protection for the heirs or the children of the first spouse to die who leaves their estate this way. All right, so some of the tax consequences are all the same as we discussed in method 2 of the 5 parts, where you leave things to a trust and you do name the surviving spouse as the sole trustee. So who uses this method? I'd say it's common. There's no right or wrong here, and everybody's family, everybody's circumstances, everybody, what they own is and how they feel and their prior life experiences, they're all different. So that's the beauty of this. You can't just, force a certain method into a certain box. Everybody's different. And so, but who uses this method? I'd say maybe, and I'm talking about the husband here, but it could be the wife as well. Maybe the husband in his mind is thinking, I have children from a prior marriage. My wife has children from a prior marriage. Right now, everybody gets along, okay. Or maybe right now, nobody gets along. And I'm just afraid, the husband might say, that if I leave stuff to a trust and I name my wife as the sole trustee, and I give her complete discretion to take distributions from the trust for needs she has, either because she's not real sophisticated or because her children are not going to get along with my children and they're going to want as much money as they can get when she dies. I don't think my wife should have the sole ability to take distributions out of what I leave to this trust with, no question from anyone else. So I trust my wife, but I think I ought to add another co-trustee, maybe one of my children, maybe some other person that I trust who can work with my wife after I pass away. And maybe I'll name a backup to that person because it's been going for a while. And that way, my wife won't have the ability to be, influenced by her children to do something that she really shouldn't do, and I wouldn't want her to do. Or maybe I just say I'm going to name a corporate trustee. I'm a rich guy. I'm a wealthy guy. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let the downtown bank trust department handle my money when I'm gone, and they'll see to it that there's no abuse for my wife to take these additional distributions. Or maybe you're just saying my spouse's management and financial management skills are poor. I've been taking care of everything and all the money, and my spouse has been doing a great job contributing to the marriage in other ways. But if I die, my spouse's financial management skills, I just don't think by herself she would be comfortable, and mistakes might get made. So for all of those reasons, that's where a spouse may leave their estate to a trust. Spouse gets the income. Principal can be used for the spouse's health, education, maintenance, and support. Spouse dies, assets revert back to the principal beneficiaries, your children, your heirs. But your spouse does not have that unfettered control to be able to make all of the, principal to income beneficiary distribution decisions. So I hope that helps. It should. And so we're going to wrap it up there, but that's scenario number 3. How does a married person leave things to protect it for their spouse and ultimately protect it for their kids or other heirs, because that conflict exists after a married person passes away? Subscribe, notification bell, like. We'll see you later.